Hey, welcome to my booth. I'm Jay. This is Brian. We're going to take a listen to Brian's sample in a moment here. Before we do, if you'd like me to review your audio, it's free. There's a form in the description. Send me something. We'll get to it as we can when your turn pops up. If, however, you'd like to accelerate your feedback, get it more quickly, you can check out the Booth Buddies like Brian did. It's down below, just a membership to this channel. And then, of course, if you'd like to, you can go to my website. There's coaching available there if that's your speed. Before we dive into Brian's sample, a quick note. This is a lovely little, it's a really, really well-written passage from, I imagine, a book, but it does deal with the Holocaust. So if that is a sensitive topic for you, be forewarned. Brian, take us away.
Introduction. I was not born into a nation. I was born into a world, fragmented, multilingual, uneven, stitched together by histories I never chose but could not escape. The names on my family tree are scattered, interrupted. Some end in silence. 10 of them, Jews, civilians, relatives, were erased by bullets in a field, victims of a nationalism so complete it called itself destiny. That silence is part of me. And so is the unease I feel whenever I hear words like purity, homeland, blood, ours. I do not hear safety in those words. I hear architecture of separation, of suspicion, of control. And I hear ghosts. And yet, I do not long for a world without culture. Introduction.
Okay. Really lovely passage, Brian. And it's, yeah, I think that your voice suits it really well because this passage is reflective. It deals with something that happened at a very well-defined point in history. And it's sort of like a reflection on that, as well as the intervening years between then and whenever this narration or these words were put to the page. And I think that your voice really, really suits it well. And your performance as well is really doing a lot for it. Before we dig into your performance more, I have just a couple technical notes for you and anybody else who might find it useful. So right now, your audio levels, the loudness of your file here overall, is just a bit quieter than would be standard. Your peak levels, meaning the loudest moment in the whole file, which is right here, is just above -9 dB. And typically we want it more towards -3 dB. So if I normalize it, it brings everything up to proper loudness levels. This is what that sounds like.
I was not born into a nation. I was born in...
And one unfortunate byproduct or thing that happens as a result of boosting that sound so much is now your noise floor is amplified pretty significantly. And there are a couple of things, and right now your noise floor is too loud to be used professionally, if that's something that is a goal of yours, or for anybody else who's curious. If we play just this little bit, you can look at the meter down here, and the noise floor is bouncing around -45 to -42 decibels. And there are a couple of things that could be contributing to this. Firstly, it could just be your equipment, Brian. Some gear just is louder in terms of its self-noise than others. So that could be a factor. It can be the cabling. It could be your interface. There are any number of things. But essentially, upgrading your equipment lowers that noise in certain respects. So there's that. There's also the fact that I don't know if you've used compression in processing. Your audio doesn't sound terribly processed to me. But if you did use compression, and a side effect of that is because what compression does is it reduces the distance or dynamic range between loud bits and quiet bits in your audio, or in other words, moments when you're speaking, loud bits, and moments when you're not speaking, quiet bits. It makes the difference between them less. And so by virtue of that, it makes the quiet bits louder in relation to the parts where you're speaking. So if you use compression, that can be a side effect that happens on occasion, or it happens all the time. So that's just something to look out for. Okay, technical stuff over. Let's dig into the juicy bits, the performance. Like I was saying, overall, I think you're doing a really, really nice job. And there would just be things that I think you could go further with in terms of the lived experience of this narrator. It's clearly very difficult material, and that's something that comes with the territory. But that also means that it's really, really rich in terms of information and emotion behind the scenes and a personal connection to things. And so all of that to say, there are lots of opportunities here to really let the words impact you and have the visualized things of that sort of stuff. Sorry, not super articulate, but it's hard for me to just kind of talk with this kind of material. But let's go phrase by phrase, and I'll break down ideas as to what I mean and how we could maybe go about it.
I was not born into a nation. I was born into a world, fragmented, multilingual, uneven, stitched together by histories I never chose but could not escape.
Okay, really powerful opening in terms of the text. And here, I think there are just a couple of things that we can look at, because I was not born into a nation. That's a unique thing to say, because very few people can legitimately claim that. And so that's something that really perks like a question for you. And understanding, I was not, and I think just technically speaking, you could slow this down a little bit and let that be, I was not born into a nation. I was born into a world. And then this is my next point, I was born into a world. While I do think you're doing a good job articulating that nation, world, those are the two things on each end of the scale here that we're drawing a juxtaposition to or attention to that difference. And while I think you're doing that well, I was born into a world, I feel in the way that you've performed it here, it's a little disjointed from the rest of this sentence. And so connecting that, I think, would just be a good next step. And so instead, let's listen to that a little bit.
I was born into a world, fragmented, multilingual, uneven.
Right here, it just sounds like it's the ending. I was not born into a nation, I was born into a world. And it's hard for me to say definitively without seeing the text, but in my mind's eye, I imagine this being, I was born into a world, fragmented, multilingual, uneven, and then continuing on. So the simplicity of nation versus the whole world being embroiled in all of these different complications, my point is simply that all of this is still attached to the world and needs to be so. So a simple technical thing, just send it through the whole phrase here and you should be good to go. Beyond that, the import of I was not born into a nation, I was born into this place. And then specifically what each of these phrases or words or ideas mean. And when I say specifically, if we imagine ourselves in this narrator's position, we've lived their life, what does it mean to have to reconcile all of this stuff as we go? And if they have even reconciled it, just the fact that we're presenting it. Anyway, so what I mean by specifically, really, really just taking the time to be like, these are all the complications that I live with now.
The names on my family tree are scattered, interrupted. Some end in silence.
This is another thing that very, very powerful, but I also think connecting it a little bit more will support it more. So the names on my family tree are fragmented.
The names on my family tree are scattered,
Scattered.
interrupted. Some end in silence.
And the some end in silence. The names on my family tree are scattered, interrupted. Some. I guess what I would do with this is imagining an image of the tree sprouting and examining all of the branches and realizing that each of these branches represent a life of someone whom I am related to, someone whom I love, someone who is a part of me. And some of these branches are just shot in all different directions. Some are broken and tried to be reattached, and some just end in silence. And the power of that, but again, it's a issue in terms of the performance here of connecting all of those images into a singular image. Right now, they kind of exist as the names on the family tree are scattered, interrupted, some end in silence. But if we connect them all, it helps us to understand how, they're all connected, but also how it lives within this narrator.
10 of them, Jews, civilians, relatives, were erased by bullets in a field.
This is another instance of that same sort of thing. Jews, civilians, relatives. So the first two are different from relatives in that the first two, Jews and civilians, could pertain to just like demographic. But then relatives brings it from the realm of, sociology into the personal. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but the fact that this narrator ends with relatives, it makes it personal. And I think that that's kind of a theme of this world event, but also this narrator's experience, that there are these categories that things take place in that we think are all neat and tidy. But for me, this is my life and personal, and these are people who are part of my tree. And so, again, this sort of connecting of the image, I think, would really help in supporting that.
Were erased by bullets in a field, victims of a nationalism so complete it called itself destiny. That silence is part of me.
This silence thing, this is something that you can play with, but the fact that the tree branches end in silence, and then we have this silence, it again leads me to believe that there's an opportunity here to continue this thread where some branches end in silence. And what silence is that specifically? Let me tell you. These are the specific instances where that silence is
part of me.
Part of me. And so all of that just connecting through and keeping that momentum.
And so is the unease I feel whenever I hear words like purity, homeland, blood.
So this as well, in terms of the connection, the fact that it's a part of me and taking that into the next thing. You know what else is a part of me? I feel that you are connecting that, but I think we can strengthen it a bit. And I think that all of that will kind of just take place naturally by virtue of strengthening all of the images and your personal connection to them.
I do not hear safety in those words. I hear architecture of separation, of suspicion, of control. And I hear ghosts. And
this ghosts is such a powerful line. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, the branches end in silence. This silence is a part of me. When people say these words, I hear ghosts. And the ghosts I'm talking about are those branches, those trees, those people that are part of me. And those ghosts are a part of me. And the weight of that, it doesn't have to be, demonstrative, I guess, where we're like, oh, the weight of all of this stuff. In pretty much all instances of performance, uh, well, I don't want to say it that way, but in a lot of cases with performance, you don't need to demonstrate the weight of something in terms of like, this is impacting me in a significant way. You can. The difference is you don't need to show it. You just need to understand what it means to you to have this weight with you. And by understanding that weight, it typically comes across, particularly in voiceover stuff like this. And so that, I think that makes sense. Anyway, Brian, really, really lovely work. Thanks for bringing this to us. And for everybody else, I hope this was helpful. And we'll catch you in the next one. Until then, be well. Toodles.